Ron Gerber here from Angelbeat. So glad to do this little fireside informal chat with Steve Woodard, who is one of the top cloud strategists, cloud evangelists with AWS. As you can see, AWS is not just the world's leading technology company retailer, it's a clothing provider. You can see the AWS bag in his home office there. So you get lots of other perks when you work with AWS. But as we're approaching the end of 2021, hopefully we are now at the beginning of the end of the pandemic, where I'm keeping my fingers crossed, COVID becomes something more like the flu, a nuisance as opposed to a pandemic. A lot of people across all industries within technology are grappling with their plans for next year. How do they continue to reinvent, pun intended, since that's the name of the AWS Global Conference? What do they do to re-architect their existing systems? They've probably gotten a lot of the easy cloud migrations done. So what I want Steve to share with us, as he's got such a wealth of experience having previously served as a more technology-oriented solution architect, now he's got a combined strategic and technical role. Maybe just go through, without revealing anything confidentially, what are some of the top priorities that your clients are dealing with? How are they looking to continue to innovate in the future? What are their 2022 digital transformation strategies? And as you share with us their insights and plans, hopefully you will stimulate some thinking amongst other people watching this video on other things they should be doing, where you can contact Steve, contact Angelbeat, or contact your local AWS representative to help you deploy similar plans. All right, Steve, let me turn it over to you. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ron, for having me. So really a couple of things that I hear consistently from my customers is really around, around innovation. They've got lots of data. How can they start to pull insights from that? And when we talk to customers, every customer really kind of starts to use the data to build a foundation for future innovation. And really, if we take a look at what Gartner has done a study where they said that by 2022, 75% of all the databases are going to be deployed or migrated to the cloud. Now, that's a huge number. And if you think about that, that number is going to just continue to grow and grow further and further. So if we start to take that kind of as our first initial play, what are customers looking to do, right? So customers that are currently looking to innovate around data, we talk about, being able to, how they can innovate with being able to move to managed. And this is where in a situation where we talk to customers around, the existing applications that they have. They've been running on premises for years. What's the strategy for getting those moved into the cloud? And then secondly to that is, all right, so I've got my databases in the cloud. What's the next thing I need to be looking for? Well, we talk about being able to break free from those commercial old guard databases and moving into more of an open source type of platform. And this really allows them the pace of innovation and the ability to be more agile, because now what they can do is now they can start to build applications that have different data stores, where traditionally on-prem that's been very, very difficult. And really we start thinking about data as a foundational component for how they continue to position themselves to overcome unexpected things, and then how do they continue to innovate and get data insights. So where customers start to think about innovating is they start thinking about, I've got the data in the cloud, what do I do next? We start to look at this perspective of kind of start building kind of a centralized way of being able to have an ecosystem that really starts to feed into the data, because data has gravity.
Well,
and if we take that concept,
one of the things that we see a lot of is the challenges of managing and ingesting data, because data isn't monolithic. There's structured, unstructured, object, file, video, text, imagery, etc. Maybe you could talk about the importance of the AWS Cloud platform in terms of data lake architectures, and at least setting up the foundation where you can analyze and incorporate all different data types, as opposed to the more traditional and potentially non-cloud friendly hierarchical databases that are fine for simple tables, but are becoming less and less applicable towards cloud applications where you want to be able to analyze all kinds of different data types.
Yeah, and this is where we really kind of get around this concept around the data lake, right? Where S3 as storage really starts to serve as your central point of data where all the data is going to go into. And then around the perimeter is really where you could start to bolster things around kind of your non-relational databases or relational databases. You can start doing some big data processing, and then you can start doing some machine learning. All of that kind of builds these out additional layers where you're breaking down traditional silos within IT. And then it gets you the ability to be able to get the insights from the data into all of these different types of environments. And AWS has over 15 purpose-built databases that all do different things that allow you to have freedom to choose what's the best type of database for your particular workload. So there's a lot of choices to choose. It's really just pairing the right technology with the right use case with the customers. And there's definitely a lot of choices there.
And so I guess one of the good things about AWS, we know being very customer centric, there may be organizations that may use another vendor's existing database software for their on-prem solutions. You can easily migrate that into the cloud. And at the same time, I believe AWS has some of its own internal databases where you can then migrate that data from another vendor's database software platform on-prem onto an AWS database. And the good thing about having you and your team there is you can work with organizations to figure out what the right approach is, because there's not one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. Every customer is unique in their approach to cloud. They have their own requirements. They have their own goals. What we typically see is industry trends, and those might be trends that maybe where a particular customer's industry may be leading them. So we've kind of got, some strategies around from an industry perspective, what are we seeing across the vertical. Then of course, every customer has a very unique environment that needs to be treated differently, because there's no two that are exactly alike. But what we see is we start to see common patterns with customers. And if that's the case, we do have existing tool sets that does work great with customers, such as database migration service, DMS. This pairs great with customers where they want to be able to either move their existing database into the cloud. Maybe they want to do a like for like move. That's great. Or maybe they want to do something where they want to be able to move from a commercial database into something more open source. And if that's the case, DMS is a great use case for that as well too, because it can support both heterogeneous and homogeneous database migrations as well too.
Okay. Now, one of the other benefits as people look at their data not as monolithic or just a 2x2 table, again, data is now incredibly diverse, complicated. One of the benefits of trying to centralize on an S3 data lake, and maybe you could comment on how some of your clients are dealing with this, relate to issues around security, compliance, dealing with issues around data locality. The great thing about AWS is you've got databases or physical data centers literally around the globe and in different regions to address specific data localities. It's not just US and GDPR, it's GDPR and then Britain, then New York, then California, then different Asian countries. It's incredibly complicated. And then on a related note, you've got concerns around ransomware. What happens if my data gets affected? The great thing is we've seen you and your colleagues present and many end users comment on is when I move it into AWS, I get a more flexible data storage platform, but I also can then have greater tools readily available to ensure compliance and ransomware recovery. Are those some considerations your clients raise as well?
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk to customers, data security, compliance, and security is always the top of every single conversation we have with our customers. And I guess the most important thing to remember is that, AWS supports 98 different security standards and compliance certifications. And this really gives us the breadth and depth to be able to support a wide range of workloads regarding any type of security environment. We have over 111 AWS services that store and encrypt customer data. So you talk about ransomware and being able to have security in the cloud. We have by far the widest portfolio when it comes to enabling customers to have the most secure and compliant type of platform running in the cloud as well too. So there's a lot of those customers that still has questions around being able to store the data. If that's the case, I highly encourage you to continue to work closely with your solutions architect around your particular requirement, because again, you start talking with customers, they all have different requirements, they all have different contractual and compliance requirements, and that's very, very important because they may have specific requirements that they're trying to work through that may require certain levels of additional areas, certain areas of sophisticated security measures that need to be in place, and those needs to be addressed. So I say work closely with your SA or your technical account manager to really work to find the best match for that.
Got it. Now, when I look at data, which whether or not it's structured, unstructured, it's still bits and bytes. It's almost like there are three types. First, you have to ingest the data, which is challenging. Then you have to find the right storage platform for consolidating all this data. And then the third part is, okay, we now need to use AI and ML tools to help you analyze the data so human beings can make informed decisions. You can allocate low-level decisions on an automated process, but you can then provide guidance to executive senior staff to make informed decisions. Maybe you can comment a little bit on this third leg, which is the analytical tools that people can use with AWS, and you don't need to be a data scientist to really create special queries. You can just be a technologist who understands the business and understands the information. You could then be a powerful ally within technology for your line of business colleagues. So maybe you can comment a little about that. And then maybe, in closing, you could also discuss the value of doing all three of these. Of course, AWS can provide analytics on top of your existing databases that might be stored on-prem. But maybe you could talk a little bit when you use AWS at all three capacities, ingesting data, storing data, and analyzing data, you get this exponential effect where the whole AWS ecosystem at your disposal as an end user is really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Again, you talk about breadth and depth of having the ability of having customers that don't have teams of data scientists, right? They want to be able to use things like Amazon SageMaker, where they want to be able to use machine learning models to start looking at the data, and they want to find the needle in a haystack. They want to look at what type of data they have. They want to see kind of where data is trending, and then they really want to start making informed decisions around what may potentially happen next, right? So maybe that is predictive analytics, or maybe they start looking at, I want to get prescriptive analytics, where I want to see what may happen, what will happen, and then what I'm going to ultimately do about it. And then when you start looking at machine learning, is that when you start getting into machine learning, it's where we want to start building data models that allows us to be able to make the decisions on our behalf. So that gives us a way for us to be able to kind of continue to keep innovating around this. And again, data has gravity. We talk about being able to move the data in S3 and then building the ecosystem around that. I'd highly encourage our customers to go out and take a look at the lakehouse architecture approach on AWS. And this is really where this connects the lake. This is where you start looking at your warehouses and then being able to start looking at all of the different type of data requirements that you have, and then being able to find the right tool for the right job. This allows customers to get more insights into their environment that gives them full functionality that they never had on premises before. So it really gives them the speed and agility to start using these services and to start being able to make informed decisions about this data. So it's really cool. I really encourage you to check that out.
So I think that's probably a good way to conclude this, is individuals, organizations are looking ahead to next year. I think, and this may be a little bit of a cliche, but I think 2022 is the year of data, and you as an organization and you as an individual need to focus your efforts around storing, analyzing, managing data. If you look at, and even a few years ago, if your job was more racking and stacking servers, worried about your existing local area network, configuring hubs, switchers, routers. It's still important, but it really doesn't, to some degree, move the needle. What's going to get you promoted, what's going to help your organization do better is if you, in looking at technology, is saying, oh, we've got all these social media video posts, we've got all the sales data, we've got all this data about employee satisfaction, we've got all this web traffic data, we got all this Twitter data. I mean, it's all diverse and it's all historically siloed. So we encourage everyone out there to take advantage of Steve and his team so you can eliminate those silos in data, set up the right platform, which is increasingly cloud-based because it gives you much more flexibility than worrying about on-prem situations. Obviously, there's a migration pathway. And in doing so, I think you'll find that you will be better positioned to be successful in your own personal career and be more promotable or have lots of headhunters calling you to a new job. And just as importantly, make sure your organization moves forward. Anything else you want to add, Steve?
No, I just really want to thank you for having me on, and definitely encourage further discussions around this topic. It's definitely something that's front and center with us here at AWS. And as we look to 2023 or 2022, actually, you know, a lot of great things coming out from AWS at reInvent. So definitely take a look, see what we launch later this month. Later
next month, since we're still in December. But there may be some pre-announcements.
That is true.
It could be, Steve, like Marvel movies, where you're going to put out some trailers and teasers in November before things like, as my kids tell me, Spider-Man No Way Home gets actually announced in December. So it's something like that. Remember, you can always go to, obviously everyone knows the aws.amazon.com website, but also check out Angelbeat. It might be a little simpler. You can use the hashtag Angelbeat across all social media and our website. If anyone has any questions, contact me. We'll put you in touch with Steve. Given the size and scope of AWS, they've got so many experts on technologies, on regions, on different industries. And because of Angelbeat's relationship with AWS, we can help make sure that your request gets allocated to the appropriate person who has expertise in databases for pharmaceutical industry in the northwest corner of the United States. And again, they're going to have specialists in each one of them that we can ensure that you get the right technical expert to help in your situation. I wish everyone the best over Thanksgiving, including Steve down there in Florida, where I'm a little jealous that it's going to be a lot warmer than me up in New York. And we'll look forward to seeing you at a future Angelbeat virtual seminar, and then a live in-person event next year. And we look forward to getting down to the Tampa St. Pete area where we'll get Steve to present live as well. Thank you all very much.